I think about the feeling of history a lot. Like, I got this old projector a while ago, and I've been using it to watch old films. Specifically, 8mm films. Because just like how you and I take videos on our phone today, for most of the previous century, 8mm film, this stuff, it was the people's film. It was what every dad who didn't know how to work a camera used to record their kids or special moments on vacation or graduation from around the 30s up until like the 70s. Most people would probably think that watching someone's vacation from 60 years ago is really boring and that, I need to get a life. But I was downright captivated. I mean, I was really interested in these random dead people's regular lives. And so I was curious why. Why was I so interested? What made looking at the past like this so interesting to me? And I thought, maybe it's not just because of how personal home movies feel, because that is how they feel, but also because of how history is normally taught.
I'm glad he's going over these questions. I'd never make head or tail out of them otherwise. I'm beginning to get some sense out of this.
I hope I do better next time. I'd hate to bring another paper like this home.
When you think of history, you probably think of school if you're like me. And if you remember history class like I do, it probably went something like this. A gigantic textbook with pictures of important people and dates that you had to memorize for a test, and then a teacher telling you why those people and dates are important and why you have to remember it. And that's kind of it. But you know what? It works enough. It does the job it was designed to do. It was designed to take a group of kids and inform them of the past based on the peaks and valleys of human existence. The parts of the past that allow them to keep the ball of human advancement rolling forward. So, history is normally taught on a macro scale. Like societies, war, industry, economics, all that. But did you ever feel like you could actually relate to all the stuff you had to learn about? Learning about the Civil War is great and important, but as much as you tell me Abraham Lincoln was a real person, and I know logically he was, that was 150 years ago. The life that he experienced and the life that I experience now are so drastically different. How could I possibly relate to that? It seems silly. Now, of course, there are moments where more relatable, micro-view topics of history are taught, usually through written records like Anne Frank's diaries, or just a good teacher who wants to give you an idea of what eating breakfast was like if you were living as a guy named, Thaddeus in Rome in the year 39. But for the most part, history is taught on a large scale. So I was always way more curious about the micro view, which is what the 8mm film is. Essentially, what were regular people thinking and feeling throughout certain events in history? Or even just what were regular people doing on a random Tuesday at a certain point in history? Because I think a perspective like that is way undervalued. And by looking at history like that, you can start to relate to it a lot more and learn things you'd never learn by going to history class or reading a history textbook. And there's a certain way of learning history that I think does the absolute best job at showing this. I'm going to tell you a story about the Breaker Boys. Now, this book is a collection of photos and stories of children across Pennsylvania who worked in the coal mines in the early 1900s. And all the pictures in this book are just some of what were thousands of pictures that were responsible for ending child labor in the US, all taken by this man, Lewis Hine. Now, if I open the book to this page over here, you'll see this picture. And on the right side of the photo, there's this kid. Now, this kid's name is Clement Tiskey. In 1911, Clement lived at 21 Union Street in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and he was one of 7 siblings. 5 brothers and 1 older sister who had to take care of the family after their parents died at an early age. Clement held the lowest ranking job in the coal mines. Every day for 10 hours, he sat 5,000 feet below the ground, waiting by a wooden door in complete darkness. The door was there to keep the fresh air in that had been pumped inside the mine. Clement's job was to wait in the darkness and listen for the sound of the minecart coming down the track so he could open the door at just the right time and let the speeding minecart roll through. And for that horrible job, he was only paid 75 cents a day, which is $25 in today's money. Now, one of Clement's brothers was John Tiskey. He had the same job as Clement and worked in the mines with him until one day, Clement came home and had to tell his older sister that John had died. On June 10th, 1925, John was walking through the rail yard on his way home from the mines when, as he was walking, the metal lunchbox he was carrying grazed the 3rd rail of one of the tracks, and he was immediately shocked to death. His older sister was then, at only 21 years old, along with having to care for the rest of her siblings, forced to plan a funeral for her younger brother only a couple years after both her parents had passed away. Now, as tragic as that story is, it's true, because that older sister was my great-grandmother. I absolutely love family history. I really think it's genuinely the best way to relate to history and, just kind of feel it. I originally got into family history because I wanted to be able to know, just who everyone in my family was, so I could stop having those moments where, you go to a wedding and your parents say, go say hi to your great Aunt Marjorie, and you're just sitting there like, who? And then you have to go say hi to this supposed stranger and then give the most awkward hug in human existence. But once I built that part of my family tree out and kind of understood my family, when I started diving deeper, I noticed just how much more I was learning about how history felt through the stories of the struggles of my ancestors and the challenges they had to face in their lifetime. In learning family history, I started to kind of build a bridge between my ancestors' regular everyday life and how they connected with bigger events in history. For example, I remember asking my grandmother when she was still alive about World War II, and she told me what it was like to be a teenager during the war and to go down to the beach and see Navy battleships guarding all of New York, from New York's harbor stretching all the way down the southern coast of Long Island, just in case the Germans were to attack America. Just like how the Allies had planned with D-Day. I find it so interesting that a story of just going down to the beach on a regular weekday just ties into World War II history. That's so cool. And I was even able to learn about the experiences of my ancestors who were long dead that I couldn't directly talk to, just by piecing together different old government documents and bits of stories. I found out on another branch of my family tree, my great-great-grandfather was a naval engineer, and I was able to find the first picture I'd ever seen of him through a naval certificate, so that's really cool to find. I even found out that his son, my great-grandfather, he was in the original version of the Christmas movie Miracle on 34th Street. I mean, he was only in it for 3 seconds as a side character, but still, that's cool. I have a video of my great-grandpa. But getting back to my main point, I think learning about history in this way is so important because it makes you relate and think about how people in the past navigated everyday life. Just like how you and I are trying to do right now. I mean, there's no guidebook, we're just trying to figure it out. And they were too. What were they stressed about? Or what brought them joy? What feelings about the world did they have that don't exist anymore? Or the opposite, what feelings about the world did they have that we think are our generation's unique feelings, but maybe they've always been a constant throughout humanity and we just forgot. And family history is just one way of feeling more connected with history. You can connect with history in a bunch of ways. I mean, you can connect to history with, I don't know, my shoe, like this. I mean, it sounds silly, but I'm serious. Let me take it off. Hold on. All right, so this is a Converse All-Star, and I wear it not just because it's a popular shoe, but because it's always been a popular shoe. The first pair of these were made in 1917 for World War I soldiers, and people have been rocking them ever since. Here's a picture of my grandpa looking cool as can be with a couple of fish in his Converse All-Stars in 1948. And then there's Elvis, Rocky, Kurt Cobain, and Wayne's World.
Excellent.
And although it's just a totally excellent shoe, by wearing it, just like any popular thing, you're associating yourself with a large community of people who also like the thing. And in this case, a lot of those people are just from the past. And you know, you probably don't know what it's actually like to be alive through the 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, but now you know what it feels like to walk around back then, so that's cool. And similar to the 8mm film I have, some of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube are just old videos that look like vlogs you'd watch today, except everyone's driving different cars, wearing different clothes, and listening to Sweet Sweet Movin' Out by Billy Joel. You can even see this perspective just by looking at random old photos. Like recently I found this book called The American Family. It's a book filled with old pictures that sum up how people and families spent their free time throughout history. I look at the photos, and even though most of the time I know the world is almost certainly better off today and maybe the past isn't as wonderful and rosy as I think, I look at these small moments in history and sometimes think, maybe there's a couple of things I should pick up on. Like, these people weren't constantly trying to keep up with new and changing things in the world like a lot of us are now. And you know what? They seem to be doing just fine. And if you think about it, history is really the only guidebook you're given on how to do life. Like, yeah, you have people around you to learn from, but I like looking back at the past sometimes because, as ironic as it sounds, it can sometimes give you a fresh and different perspective for how to live for the future. And learning to live not just from the pool of people around you, but the ocean of the people before you is a powerful tool.